Serious, what lead to the most intense orgasm of your life? This guy just fingered me right while stimulating my clit with his thumb. It was the strangest build up. I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was having a heart attack. And starting from my fingers and moving up my arm I was going numb. Then I came. I think I screamed. It made me cry and laugh hysterically. I had a krill orgasm. When I was younger I used to sleep with this girl regularly in the back of the car. One time she was on top and I felt everything from my thighs all the way up to my chest start to contract and release with my heartbeat. Getting faster and faster until one point I was basically shaking. Weird part was no ejaculation. It lasted maybe 30-45 seconds and was the most intense pleasurable moment I've ever felt in my life. Not sure what it was or how to have it happen again, but yeah. Amazing. Edit. 8. Didn't think I'd get this many replies, but I'll update for a few questions asked. Drugs or alcohol weren't involved. There was no prostate stimulation. I was in a seated position, sitting upright, with her on top of me, facing me. Having a sex in a sauna where it was really hot but not so hot we might pass out. She was seated and we were both covered in a sheen of sweat. Getting the rush of the heat and the raw agony of the situation. Just as I was about to climax, she reached over and dumped the jug of cool water down my back. The climax and shock combined into something I have never experienced again. It couldn't be recreated because it was the spontaneity and surprise that really made it work. Few months of not doing anything else is all. That one moment was so satisfying. I don't think there's only one that sticks out. The most intense ones left my entire body limp and buzzing like I had inhaled laughing gas at the dentist. It would feel like water was trickling through my feet and my teeth were buzzing. I can never speak after one of those. My uterus will almost get menstrual cramps afterwards. During it is like it will go on and on forever and all colors get brighter. My BF doesn't understand why I don't always want an orgasm during intimacy. Sometimes it's nicer and just as pleasurable to just have intimacy and feel the endorphins afterwards. Those are like a well-proportioned meal. It fills you up and keeps you full and content afterwards, and you will feel hungry again the day after. Orgasms are like eating the every single dish at every single 5-star restaurant at once. You kinda need to recover for a bit after that. Edit. Thank you for the silver. Back when my boyfriend and I still lived at home, I was spending the night at his house. We were in his room and things were heating up. He had me at the edge of his bed while he sat on a trunk at the end of his bed, just slowly fingering me and eating me out for what felt like hours. Everything was slowly building up and I felt like I was in ecstasy. Finally, he looked up at me and said, "I'm gonna make you come now," and fully started eating me out while fingering me. That, mixed with having to stay quiet because his family was in the other room, was the most intense pleasure I felt. I was still orgasming when he had me after Mayo. Got tied up, blindfolded, edged, and then she carried on riding after I came for like 5 minutes. I'm pretty certain I was dead for part of the post-orgasm ride, but me did it feel incredible. I had a one night stand with this woman while she was on top. I told her that I was going to come and she then proceeded to say I'm not finished. She then began riding me even harder. Even after orgasming I was rock solid. She rode me for a good 5 more minutes until she came and collapsed on me. I literally had tingling in my lips and toes like I was gonna pass out because it felt like a continual orgasm that never stopped. XGF blew me and after I came she kept gently sucking. I had what I can only describe as multiple orgasms. I don't think I actually ejaculated anything, but the sensation was the same but more powerful each time. I had to stop her because I was about to pass out. She had done that in the past and she did it after, but that one time was the only time that happened. It was the most pleasure I have ever felt. Right before college I hadn't come in around 10 days due to a summer trip with friends sharing the same sleeping area. I got back to my place and instantly fell asleep. Dead tired. When I woke up in the morning my hands feet were warm and tingly. I sort of stretched out in bed like a cat and got a sudden, very extreme pang of pleasure from deep inside me. Instinctively I knew I was going to come. It was like that moment after passing the point of no return, but it just went on forever. It felt like minutes. Eventually my whole body was pulsing in rhythm with my heart and alternating between hot and cold. It felt much more like what a female orgasm is described as, with a slow build up and afterglow. It was different than any orgasm I've had before or since. Even different than a prostate orgasm. It was like when stretching I somehow accidentally activated the orgasm nerve. You probably had a coregasm. Back when I was in grade school, I would shimmy up the bars to the top of the swing set while dangling my legs to either side until I would have an awesome feeling. I didn't realize what was happening till 15-20 years later, and I realized I wasn't just actively masturbating, I was also trying to teach my friends how to do it too. It's super ed up. I know. But I don't think I've had a better orgasm since. Edit. Y'all are making me feel normal today. Edit 2. I jerked it off while the tip was in her mouth and her tongue was dancing circles. She was also touching herself and moaning. That last sentence is too real. We both came while she was riding me. She slowed down for a few minutes to catch her breath but kept going. And I stayed hard. After about 2 minutes she picked up the pace a bit. I told her I already came. She said, I know, but you're still hard and it feels really good. I don't think I'll come again. But I'm gonna keep going. I just said, well, I'm not gonna stop you. I was super sensitive, almost ticklish, for the first couple of minutes, and then it felt really good, and after another 5 or so minutes I orgasmed again. Completely different feeling orgasm to the first. Pretty sure I didn't ejaculate. But was an intense full body wave of ecstasy that lasted what felt like 20 seconds. Never had that happen before or since. Definitely what I would call multiple orgasms. In my mid-teens and probably the height of my adolescent horniness, I went to camp for a week. Didn't jack for a week. When I got home and was able to be alone finally, it was a blur. Probably my first vaginal orgasm, as opposed to clitoral, was intense. Cried after. And cried after every vaginal orgasm since. Nothing weird. About a month ago, my fiance registered sign and I got into a huge fight and broke up. COVID stress and lockdown stress got to us and we both lost our cool, then had really angry breakup sex, and it was the most passionate sex we'd ever had. We decided to work things out and stay together. And the makeup sex was 100 times better than the breakup sex. My ex, who never talked dirty, jumped up on the vanity and said me. So I had the out of her, and when I was getting in the short rows I said, I'm gonna come, to which she replied, fire away baby. That did it. I felt like I shot my balls out. Blowjob while she had this little prostate vibrator in my butt. It was like I had a stroke. I could hardly move the right side of my body and my vision went derpy. Was only able to lay there for a while. Her body took a screenshot lol. Edit. Been married for 16 years. Whilst having sex a few months ago, my wife started caressing my balls. She had never done that before. I went off like a goddamn firecracker and it was amazing. My GF at the time lived with her mother. First she said she didn't want to have sex because her mom was downstairs, probably asleep. Then she changed her mind but said just don't make too much noise. So I had her. I'm not usually a moaner, so this time I was downright creepily silent. But hearing her gasping quietly and trying to stay quiet, which, in retrospect, was hilariously unnecessary, was so hot. TL. DRSX at her mom's house. Moved. One time I was at my occasional boyfriend's house and we were making out. His son was fast asleep upstairs, so we didn't have sex. But he laid me on the floor and went down on me and gave me one of the strongest and most intense orgasms of my entire life. I am not exaggerating at all. I've been having sex since I was 16 and I'm 40 now. I think about it all the time. I was in a super toxic relationship with a chick. It was out of control. I was always wrong. She never apologized ever and we both had drinking problems. One night she came home drunk while I was at home with strep throat. She woke me up and started yelling at me, the whole horrible, toxic, emotionally painful cycle of bull. The next morning I woke up and told her I was done with her. She started crying, then we had sex. While we were having sex she said, "I want you to know I'm really sorry about last night." Then she started screaming, I'm sorry over and over while she orgasmed. And then while she was screaming I'm sorry, I had the most unreal orgasm. I came so hard and thought I wasn't going to stop. I shot my load over her entire body and onto the wall. I was so proud and happy. We definitely didn't break up after that. We definitely still had a toxic relationship. Ended explosively 6 months later. The night I asked my girlfriend to marry me and she said yes. I couldn't believe how hard I was. We ate bareback on the couch and I came inside her in minutes. Fast for me. So powerful and passionate, like I couldn't believe. The intimacy and romance of it was kinkier than anything I'd ever felt. Then she changed her mind and left me for someone I thought was my friend. Jesus, that took a turn. Had a lot of sexual tension with this girl for a while. Finally we hooked up and had great sex. I finished once and we kept on going. Just got better and better. Until boom. Finished again. Anyway, I blacked out and came to about 20 seconds later. I'm blood out of both nostrils. She was panicking, thinking she'd literally shagged me to death. After I told her I was okay and we got some tissues, she said it was actually kinda hot. Not having sex, masturbating for a month. GF gave me a blowjob and I came so hard I passed out. Anyway. I've been married to her for 4 years in February. I was on my first date with my dream girl. We went to see The Mummy, Brendan Fraser. And sat up in the corner. When we sat down and pulled the middle armrest up, she pulled a blanket out of her purse and covered it. Grabbed my hand and put it right on her special place. Where I discovered she had hiked up her skirt. After she finished she thanked me. Kissed me deeply a few times while gently working her hand into my pants. Needless to say, about the time Imhotep was fully powered up I had a mind-blowing orgasm. But she didn't stop. She whispered in my ear, "I can feel you throbbing," and squeezed gently. I went again. I didn't know it was possible. I really miss her. I wish teenage me wasn't such a jealous and no self-esteem asshole. I was playing Luigi's Mansion and boyfriend started playing with me. First slipped his hands inside my shirt and slowly moved down. I haven't been able to play that game without being aggressively turned on ever since. Lady fingered my ass while jerking me off. That's one special cookie. I climaxed from a 30-minute blowjob, literally perfectly synced with the climax for the season 3 finale of River Monsters. I swear I climaxed for a solid minute straight. It was awesome. I opened my eyes and Jeremy Wade was doing his calm recap of the episode and what we'd learned. It was more calming than any cigarette ever could be. Me and my ex GF were having sex in her car at the park. So damn risky I could see through the windshield 2 dads playing frisbee with 4 kids. The whole car fogged up. And had people walk right by the car. Didn't give a though. Anyway, I busted so hard I was actually high after. A girl was blowing me. On her knees. And reached around and stuck her finger in my bum. Pretty hard. I didn't think I was near coming. But holy, I blew my load so hard she started coughing. But damn. My knees gave out and I was shuddering. I wish I could feel that again. My then fiance, now wife, was on top. Went from gentle riding to bouncing. Then to me pounding her out from my underneath position. I could feel her coming with each stroke and then I just had to come to. Pulled out and busted all over myself. She was keeled over from coming hard and I felt like I just released everything. My balls were literally tingling and my dick stayed hard. When she saw how much I came, she got turned on again. Sucked my cock and rode me again. The second time wasn't as amazing for me, but she still came and it was still hot. high doses of SSRIs. It's a ton of work. Frustratingly so. To even orgasm. But the payoff is good. My best orgasm came from a 5'4" half Asian MMA dude. I'd always been too nervous to let guys keep fingering me because I wasn't sure what would happen. But for whatever reason, I just let him keep going. It took forever and it was a really weird feeling getting there. But goddamn when I did. I lost all control of my muscles. Learned that I squirt. And I'm pretty sure I saw Jesus. I've never had a G-spot orgasm before or since. So I was pretty bummed when he stopped texting back. Edit, this was not a plea for dudes to come try to give me a G-spot orgasm. Appreciate the sentiment. But I'm good. My husband is just really amazing in bed. I never enjoyed sex until him. Some of that I think is because I'd never experienced real intimacy before. But he also just really makes it happen. The first time we ever hooked up, he gave me oral until I came, which took forever. He's a champ, but he held my legs and kept going. The amount of desire I had for him combined with what he did just made me crazy. And multiple orgasms. I honestly thought women just lied about that or it was a PRN thing. Turns out it's definitely real and it's a regularity for me now. I feel pretty stoked that I got to marry the person who also has given me the best sex of my life. Not a bad setup. Finally having sex with someone I have feelings for. Who I actually love and him knowing how to me good. Edit. Of all the comments to blow up. First time I made my girlfriend orgasm with just penetration and felt her go stiff. Literally orgasmed so hard I forgot anything but the words holy for 20 minutes afterwards. I recently discovered clit suckers. Best orgasm of my life. It was the first time I'd ever squirted, that I know of, and I absolutely drenched my bed. I was just playing around for a while and I put the toy on. It worked up an orgasm and I came but I kept the toy there. It just kept buzzing and I was coming back to back. I'd never made such noises in my life. Like I was possessed. The feeling of the warm juice flowing from me as I come. The noise of it splashing. The feeling of coming so hard my PSSY explode was just crazy. It's the only way I come like this. But the first time was eye-opening. My whole body was exhausted like I've just ran or swam a marathon. I barely had it in me to change my sheets. I've had a few more like that since. But you never forget at first. Two women making out with the head of my cock between their mouths. I married one of them. Moved. Ex was fighting with me all day long. Just non-stop bickering between us. By the end of the day you could cut their tension with a knife. We were getting ready to have another argument and instead he throws me on the couch. Rips down my shorts and starts eating my PSS while like his life depended on it. To this day I've never had an orgasm like that and it was also the first time I ever squirted as well. I've tried to recreate what made it so good but I genuinely think his arguing all day played a big part for some reason. First blowjob for sure. Had no idea what to do so I busted all in this poor girl's mouth. For me it was probably SX. That was pretty cool. My most intense orgasm from masturbation came the day I discovered two things. Playing with my own nipples was a huge plus. And using a light grip, virtually just fingertips, around the head of my dick to finish, only works if I'm extra hard and horny. The two together gave me a cum that beat out most intercourse orgasms I've had. The time a girl started sucking my nips while we were both coming confirmed it for me. Nipple play basically doubles my coming strength. My boyfriend was eyeing me while holding a vibrator against my clit and when I came it was like a weird spiritual experience. Everything went white and suddenly I was looking down on myself when I did my solo trip to Paris 4 years ago. And young me was looking out the stained glass mirrors in a church and I just had this overwhelming feeling of freedom and peace. According to my boyfriend it looked like my eyes totally glazed over and wasn't there. When I came back down from wherever I was I just started intensely crying and then eventually fell asleep. We've tried but haven't been able to replicate an orgasm quite like that. Back in college. Sophomore year I think. I had a huge stats final. I was barely passing, so I really needed to do well. I spent 2 days cramming and was a ball of stress. When test time finally came, so did I. Just before turning it in, like right after I filled in the last bubble, I had the most intense orgasm I've ever had. By far. It was such a huge release of stress and tension that I guess my body just went into full decompression mode. I let out a very audible groan. But thankfully everyone was too invested in the exam to notice. I took a moment to collect myself. And when I finally rebooted, I realized I had a huge wet spot on my car keys. Luckily it was the winter semester, so I bunched up my jacket and held it over my crotch as I quickly shuffled my way back to my apartment. Ever since then, during moments of extreme stress, I occasionally have these stress-gasms, as I call them. But never as intense. I always wear dark pants to interviews, haha. The first time I came with my dick balls deep into a girl's mouth. Removed. I did no nut November in 2018. I was at a club and met this girl there. I took her back to my place and she gives me a blowjob and a month's worth of jizz exploded out. Best timing of my life. Edit. Wow, this is the most votes of my life. And it was 1 month for clarification. Making out with my girlfriend while my other female friend is blowing me. I'm getting close and my girlfriend pulls back and whispers "come" in her mouth in my ear. This will get buried, but weirdly enough, it was a guy having absolutely no idea WTF he was doing. He was so hesitant to try anything that he ended up chickening out and not even touching me a few times. So tension was kind of up there for a week or two. Then when we finally got clothes off, it took him ages to work up the nerve to touch me lower than the waist. He finally got some fingers going. And then decided to try getting his mouth into the action for the first time in his life. With all the slowness and the hesitating and all of that. It just wound me up so much that when I finally got there, it was both explosive and never ending. It was like the Energizer Bunny of orgasms. As long as he kept touching me, I kept going. Never felt one like that before or since. Yes. I told him. Not sure he believed me. Really good hands-free fellatio that continued well past what was needed. Spend my entire life with a medical condition I knew nothing about, which caused me not to be able to get an orgasm whenever I masturbated or had sex. I thought the small rush I felt was it. And well, it wasn't all that special. The doctors found out the issue while looking at a different medical issue I had. And I had surgery. Few weeks of resting. And my boyfriend and I were doing it again for the first time in a long while, and I was in absolute shock. Left breathless. Could hardly move. Pure bliss for a few minutes and then fell asleep. Tired and satisfied. I'm a bit more used to the feeling now. A few years later. I'm in a weird boat because I don't find anyone sexually attractive. But I'm not averse to sex. You can still pick a snack out of the fridge even if nothing looks good. So orgasming has been kind of mechanical. For lack of a better term. I decided to see if I could have a real orgasm and thought it might be fun to try a couple of psychedelics before sex, and it intensified the sensation to the point that it was almost spiritual. The only downside is that I thought the desk lamp was a small universe. Which wound up being more interesting than further sexual activity. I know this isn't exactly a wholesome story to read. But to answer the cue, the most intense orgasms have been when I've masturbated while stoned. The orgasm from that is like 100x better than any sober orgasm during sex. Brazilian hooker didn't let me get out after finishing, with condom. Held me inside and kept eyeing me until I was hard again, and we went on round 2 without leaving contact in between. She was such a cool girl. We couldn't understand each other, but we talked about music and I escorted her back to the club a few blocks away and we held hands the whole time.